Welcome back, my friends, to AA Recovery Interviews. I'm your host, Howard Al, and I'm an alcoholic. Sober since January 1st, 1988, one day at a time. I'm grateful you've joined us. AA Recovery Interviews is the podcast where Alcoholics Anonymous members from around the world share their extraordinary stories of experience, strength, and hope. There are more than 160 awesome interviews in the AA Recovery Interviews podcast series. Listen to every hour-long episode on any podcast app or at the website aarecoveryinterviews.com. Each story is a powerful testimony of the recovery available to all in Alcoholics Anonymous. Today is an encore episode of my interview with Margie D, originally released in January of 2021. Margie has been sober since November 1979. In the spirit of having a wide variety of guests on the show, I'm pleased to welcome Margie D, a woman whom I first met in a London-based Zoom meeting early last year and have gotten to know in the many Zoom meetings we've shared since then. She was among the first people to greet me in that meeting, and we've mostly gotten to know each other during the 10 to 15 minutes of fellowship we both enjoy prior to each meeting. Originally from New England, but having lived in Great Britain for a number of years, Margie has over 41 years of sobriety. Having faced many obstacles to getting to AA and subsequent challenges to sobriety during her 4 decades in the program, Margie has remained as passionate and committed to the program as one can be. In all those years, the longest she's ever gone without a meeting was 10 days during the birth of her children. The simple program she was first told about by the frigging old dudes, as she describes them, is the same program she has followed over these many years. It's also the same program she has freely given to others in frequent sponsorship and a wide variety of service commitments she has fulfilled since first getting into AA in the fall of 1979. As you listen to this episode of AA Recovery Interviews, take note of Margie's good humor and enthusiasm for Alcoholics Anonymous and her nonstop work in the program, and you will learn exactly how someone can put together so many years of sobriety. And whether you've been sober a long time or a short time, whether you're brand new or have returned to AA after a relapse, Margie's message of hope, faith, and trust is one you can take to the bank, the spiritual bank, that is. And whether you're listening while you're driving, multitasking, or relaxing with your feet up, please enjoy the next hour, 1 minute at a time, with my special guest, Margie D.
My name is Margie, and I'm an alcoholic.
Hi, Margie. I'm so glad you're here today. So you're in London, and we're doing this with a 6-hour time difference, and you don't sound like you have a London accent by any means.
No. No, I do not.
Do you ever fake it?
Nope, never. Unlike, I have done an acting part or two where I've had to kind of, but no. A lot of people ask me that. It's like, you've been in London 20 years. And like, why aren't you sounding like a Londoner? A, I'm not one. I wasn't born here.
Right.
B, I'm really not that easily influenced.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Yeah. Plus it makes for a more interesting conversation. So can I guess where you're from originally? In New York City, maybe? New Jersey? New Jersey?
No,
not quite.
A little bit more east and north.
Boston.
Close. I'm from Rhode Island, which is right on the Massachusetts border. So we get, we're kind of between Boston and New York, and the accent kind of comes up that thrown in with some French Canadian. So,
I get that.
There you go.
Yeah. So are you from Newport or Providence? Or
no. I'm from the dodgy end. I'm from, Newport. Newport's all the Vanderbilts and Rockefellers.
Yeah, I thought maybe you were.
No. That's not me. No. Other end. Other end. Woonsocket, Rhode Island, which is considered, it's considered not Newport. Let's put it that way. Newport. A lot of working class and that kind of thing. And which is fine. It's a very little state. It's about the size of London, I think.
So did you actually grow up there?
Yes. Born, bred, grew up, got all my foibles there, got all my good parts. And then, as I got older, I decided, I really didn't like New England
winters.
Didn't, as much as say, well, you grew up there, you should be used to them. Never.
Yeah.
I was never, ever used to them. And I always had in the
Yeah.
back of my mind it would. So my sister lived in Miami.
Uh-huh.
And when I was in need of making a geographical transition, when I was heading toward the end of my drinking days, I went to Miami. That's what I think alcoholics do. They never do a geographical to like Iowa or North Dakota. It's like, I'm in Miami. I'm getting things are getting rough here. I'm going to North Dakota. It's like
only if you want to get lost or you're running from the law, maybe, right?
Yeah. But everybody from New York, they considered Miami the sixth borough of New York.
Yeah.
A lot of New Yorkers. You might go to New York. You might go to New York City.
Right.
But it's either Miami, Los Angeles, or someplace warm. You don't go.
Phoenix, Scottsdale, Arizona, right?
Yeah.
Las Vegas.
You're not going to go to Fargo. It's like,
no. Who would
for geographical? It's like no.
So you mentioned your foibles. So are those starting with family foibles? What was life like when you were growing up?
Again, I came from a working class, my kind of thing. So if you look at my history, you're going to kind of look at the history of the place, which is the outside things that influence you, but also your genetic makeup. And my genetic makeup was Irish, Roman, Polish, Catholic. There's no way I could escape.
They get you in every direction, don't they?
Oh my God! It's like so. As far as being a guilty alcoholic, there's that was just it. I was brought up. In the church, which I never really connected with, but you kind of had to obey because you were a kid. And I just came from a family of genetic alcoholics. There was the Polish side, which they loved to drink, and then there was the Irish and English side, and they loved to drink.
They loved it.
Which I think, it's like when people say, oh, if you were in my profession, everybody in my profession drinks. It's like, I have, over the years, because I've been sober a long time, I have found every profession drinks.
Yeah.
Everyone is like, well, if you were a dentist, you would. If you were a doctor, you would. If you were a policeman, you would. And if you were a steel worker, you would. And if you were a mom alone in her house doing, houseworky things, you would. The ones that really scared me were less than the airline pilots, because I used to work in the industry, and we used to have a special program for the airline industry. The pilots didn't scare me as much because there's always a co-pilot.
Right.
The mechanics union scared me.
Hopefully they're not doing maintenance on a Monday after a wild weekend.
The next day they find a handful of nuts and bolts in their pocket, So I haven't heard of any profession where I say, nobody drinks here.
Yeah. Some professions are better at hiding it than others, though.
Exactly.
I mean, the entertainment industry, the reason it's so prominent is just because of all the publicity around the profession. But I've known plenty of doctors, and they even go to their own separate meetings because they can't have the public knowing that they're alcoholics in their midst.
Which is how originally the program was put together, because there was a lot of stigma to any profession that if you said you were an alcoholic. Now it's like it's rather chic if you've been in recovery, and but that's taken 80 years to get there. But in the beginning, your reputation and your business and everything else could be shot to hell in one things, and that's why they kept it anonymous. On a historical point of view.
Well, we're fortunate. You and I are fortunate that we are able to. You've been sober a long time, as have I.
Yes.
But we're able to go ahead and let people know, because we realize how important it is to be able to help people. But I can imagine, and even the helping professions, when you have to protect your anonymity, how hard it must be. Now, you mentioned you've been sober a long time. What?
My sobriety date is November 6, 1979. So I've been sober 41 years.
Oh my
so
gosh.
far.
Oh,
I know, right?
I knew it was high 30s. I didn't realize it's 41.
I have an L on my chip. It's like an XL. And it's like an L,
Yeah,
I want to get it. I want to get up to the point where there's only an L on there.
Yeah. You don't want to get to the point where it's a C. Have you ever known anybody who's got a C on there?
Not yet, but we're getting there. We're getting there.
Yeah. So you grew up in this. One of my friends used to call it a CIA family. Catholic Irish alcoholic. Yeah,
Yep.
he was in a CIA family.
Plus the Polish. My town was loads of churches. I mean, there's only 40,000 people. Loads of churches, loads of bars. And, the joke around the Polish community, because we had lots of different kinds of people living in the town. It wasn't just things. It was all kinds of people. But like in the Polish thing, in our Polish family, it was like the joke was I went to a fight and a Polish picnic broke out. And it was basically that. Everybody get a drink, do the polkas, dun, 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 and then start hitting each other. I just think there's a percentage of the population that is alcoholic. Yeah. And a percentage of the population permeates every ethnic group, every business group, any kind of things. It's like 10 to 15%, I think, is the thing. I think it's higher. But that's how many per capita that you can expect within putting 100 people together or 200 people together.
Yeah, absolutely. And some ethnic groups are a little bit more predisposed to being open to it, that other people know about it. So now, when was your first? When did you first take a drink?
I was in high school. It was the late 60s, early 70s, and so it was kind of a rule. You had to. Because of that was all Haight-Ashbury, Vietnam protest, hippies, love and peace, that kind of thing, hippies, flower children, that kind of thing. It was kind of mandatory for kids in junior high school and high school to drink terrible wine, Boone's Farm, Thunderbird, Mad Dog, all that kind of, cost like 50 cents a bottle. And it was like, oh boy, was that stuff bad. And smoke pot and listen to Jimi Hendrix and eat Cheetos by the bagfuls,
when you say mandatory, it sounds like it's something that you had to do that you might not have enjoyed.
Oh, no, I enjoyed it. Heck yeah. But it was like, it was all peace and love and, let's have a little, pot and all that stuff, which I didn't really like. I didn't really like that much, but I sure did like the Boone's Farm and the Thunderbird. And after a while, I started to like the things. It didn't really affect me that much in high school because I didn't do it. It was right after high school where it fell over. Now it's a requirement. It's not just something that we're doing because, where have all the flowers gone kind of thing going on. It changed. The nature of how I drank changed. During high school, it was like,
to fit in and that sort of thing.
Yeah,
Because you and I both know people keep on drinking for different reasons, either to blot out feelings of loneliness or peer pressure, or simply just to change the way they feel. Which of those categories did you mostly fit into?
I don't think I fit into any of them, really. I didn't. Okay. I just drank because I felt the urge. I remember as a kid, before the whole drinking things, it didn't really blot out my emotions. It kind of made them worse.
Did it really?
Yeah, I was like one of those maudlin ones. It's like, oh, I'm having a terrible life, and now I'm drunk, and I'm going to tell you all about it forever and repeatedly. Hi, it's 3 a.m. Let me complain about my current boyfriend. Blah, that kind of a drunk. So it didn't blot out anything. It brought him right up and said, let's talk about this in a really drunken, annoying manner. That was just before it really started to get ugly.
Really?
That was kind of the part that started to show that there was something. Because the thing is, I wasn't getting phone calls from people like that. I was only giving phone calls like that.
Yeah.
Then, of course, it gradually it escalates into, especially during that whole free love thing. You end up in somewhere where you don't know who you are or what the person's name is, or that kind of thing. And it was an insidious, gradual, almost imperceptible escalation of things. It wasn't all of a sudden. It was gradual. I can track it like from 1971 up to about 76, 77. Now I'm just spending my life cleaning up the consequences of what happens when I drink. But it was gradual up until that point. First it was, just being a pain in the ass. And other times it turned into just bad behavior when I was drunk. And then it turned into driving drunk. If you look at those bell charts of alcoholic behavior, you can see me in a little car going through each phase of it. And then it sets in stone. And then that's when you lose the power of choice whatsoever.
Yeah. It sounds like that was a difficult time. And I often notice how decisions I made within a relatively brief period of time under the influence, whether it was drugs or alcohol, were decisions that affected me for a much, much greater length of time than the time in which I was doing the things that created those decisions. Were you hanging with a particular group of people at this time or in high school? And did you go on to university or...
No, I didn't go on to university. I went on to, I attended college after I got sober. I was from a family that they were not prone to go to college. It was like you leave your house at 18 and you get a job and that's it. And you take care of yourself, and whatever you do with that, it's entirely up to you. When I got sober, I went back to school for, various different things. After high school, I didn't hang too much with my high school friends. I was in like a larger city. I moved to a larger city, Providence. And so I hung around with people who drank. I was also a dancer, so I hung around with dancers. I hung around things, but oddly, I still have some of those friends now. So I was out and about, and then disco happened, man.
I remember.
It was like everybody was, doing the disco duck. Everybody was drinking and wearing shiny clothes and, all of that. And so I hung around with that group.
Did any of the group that you hung around with that you still know to this day, are they still drinking, or did they get sober, or what's their story?
A couple of them are actually a couple of them are sober. Two of the dancers that I used to hang around with, things, we all kind of quit drinking almost on the same day in different parts of the world. Yeah. I was in Miami. Wow. My girlfriend Holly, who I just talked to, we shared a flat. An apartment in Woonsocket, Rhode Island, where I'm from. Anyways, but she was in Los Angeles. I was in Miami, and the other one, my friend Charlie, was still in New England. We all just went, well, that was completely crazy. I have to stop this crap. And, they're all still sober now.
Yeah. Now, was that because they were brought to a bottom? And speaking of bottoms, what was yours like when you started to approach your sobriety date?
Sit down and get a cup of coffee, Howard.
Well, that's why I'm here. That's my job.
It's the most ridiculous thing ever. I mean, it's like somebody, made it up, only it actually happened. I went down to Miami because the consequences were getting annoying. I was smashing up a lot of cars. My boyfriend at the time was a policeman in South Attleboro, Massachusetts, and I T-boned the fire chief's car with his car.
Oh no!
Yeah, but it was all just stupid junk like that. I was a stupid drunk, and I'm a relatively intelligent person, and I could see how stupid my behavior was looking. So to someone else looking outside, go, that girl is crazy and she's stupid and stay away from her.
When crazy meant crazy instead of just fun-loving crazy.
No, not fun-loving crazy. Crazy, back up away from her crazy. Stun gun would be good. So because, the consequences like T-boning the fire chief's car, all that kind of nonsense that we do. That
Were you hurt when that happened?
Yeah, I was hurt. Not in an ambulance sort of way, but smashed up the head. And I put my teeth, you can still see the scar that I have where I put my teeth through my lip, that kind of stuff.
What a reminder.
They didn't arrest people so much then, back in the 70s, for drunk driving.
So you had a boyfriend who was a cop. Did he get you out of scrapes?
Yeah, for a while.
Okay.
But then it got annoying, and it was about that time that I decided to, because the consequences were now chewing at the back of my shoes, to go to Miami. And anyways, I hated the winter. So my sister said, come on down, because she was living in Miami, and I went down to Miami in 1978, I guess, beginning of 1978. And down I went, and it was wonderful, It was like there was paradise, and there was things, and there was drinking. Yeah. And my bottom was, I worked it up and got some new consequences there, this kind of things, driving around drunk, ending up in parts of Miami you really should not go to ever.
Yeah.
It was the height of the drug dealers and the drug wars there. It was that, and it was also Castro had let out, that was when Jimmy Carter was president. He opened up the prison doors in some of the psychiatric hospitals, and he loaded them all up on about 250,000, what they call the Mariolito boat lift.
I remember that.
And so I was like in Coral Gables where they all arrived. So I was getting myself in all kinds of trouble with all of the Marielitos, and God bless them, some of them went on to be wonderful citizens,
Sure.
but a lot were still, criminals and that kind of thing. And they were, looking for advantages in Miami. So I was hanging around with them. I was hanging around with drug dealers. I was hanging around, I don't know how I survived because I was stupid. I needed to get a drink. And if you were going to buy me one, or you were going to go somewhere where there was one.
No matter where.
Yeah, in places in Miami that you do not go to. I don't know how I survived. I remember once stepping over a body that was covered with a yellow sheet to get into Sammy's on the east side.
No.
To go, it's like it wasn't pretty.
My goodness. And there was a lot of cocaine in those days down there, wasn't there?
Man, cocaine cowboys. That's where the name came from. It was during Miami during that time. So that was the time when I was at my peak. So I was working in my brother-in-law had a restaurant bar, and I was working behind the bar then. And I met this man who was the man of my dreams. So I thought,
really,
lots of money, lots of things. He was a Learjet pilot.
Wow.
He was drove a white Corvette, which should have been right there.
First
should
signal.
have been warning, warning, warning. Right there.
Yeah.
But I didn't know. I was like, I was half in the bag most of the time.
Sure.
And so we went flying all over the place. We were things. He gave me lots of money. I was in love. It was big, giant, tremendous love. I love this guy. And I was drinking, and he bought me as much drink as I could handle. He furnished my apartment.
Was he a drinker too?
Yes, but he didn't seem to, when I drank, I kind of lost bone structure, It was like I just became kind of, melted down into a pile. Yeah. Gelatinous, yeah. I was gelatinous and stupid, and whiny. I wasn't evil. I wasn't doing evil stuff.
So he was buying you,
everything. And he also had a best friend named Bruce who used to come with us quite a lot. So toward the end, it was big love, and I think on his part too. One day he went away on a business trip. See, business trip. I'm thinking, Learjet pilot. And he is flying Japanese businessmen from here to there all over South Florida because there's a lot of money down there. Yeah. And that was his job. So he goes off for a couple of days. He comes back, la, la, la. And, I'd hang out with Bruce and that kind of thing. And so one day he just didn't come back. He was gone for a week. He was gone for 2 weeks. And it was like, okay, what the hell's going on here? And so I called a few of his friends. He used to have friends like Norm Crosby, the comedian, and, businessmen in Hollywood, Florida. And he was quite a deal in my eyes. So he didn't come back, and I called his friend Dick up in Hollywood, and I said, what's the deal here? And he said, well, we're just going to his funeral.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So I'm like, whoa, they'll flip out, blah, 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 blah. I had my brother-in-law and my sister take me up to Hollywood to this thing. Well, so there I am, and I'm at this...
Yeah.
I'm at the funeral parlor outside, flipping out. Big love of my life, supposedly dead. Blah, blah, blah. And Dick comes out and he goes, what the hell are you doing here? I'm like, boyfriend, dead, girlfriend, here, This is what I'm doing. He said, so this is something that this gentleman neglected to tell me, was that A, he was not flying Japanese businessmen. He was actually, what had happened was, supposedly his Learjet went down in the Everglades and crashed. And actually, there was a jet that went down in the Everglades on that date. And he had died in the crash, supposedly. It was not Japanese businessmen that went down with him. It was a whole load of drugs from Escobar that he was flying. His business trips were to Bogota, Colombia, and back. So he was a courier for the cartel.
Boy, that is big business, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. And so that I found out. And then I found out, you forgot to tell me that he was married with 3 children. Oh, no. And the wife and the 3 children were inside the funeral home, all lined up and greeting guests, and I was just about to walk in. I'm like, what? Not only dead, not only Bogota, not only wife and 3 children, this kind of thing. And then I called Bruce, and I'm like, why the freak didn't you tell, on and on. So about 6 months later, it was right after that, I really went into some drinking and cocaine speeded up my bottom a little bit, only because it made me so miserable. And so it speeds, puts a time constraint on that.
Did you split when you saw that the wife and kids were there, or did you actually
Oh, no, I didn't go
it?
in. No.
Okay, good.
No. I'm not that evil, They took me away, but I did do a lot of grieving for about 6 to 8 months, and then I came into the program through another set of circumstances. And I was on a not a yacht but a big boat in Biscayne Bay with some sober friends and something, and I heard somebody talking at the bow of the boat. And they mentioned this guy's name. I was like, blah, blah, blah. What's his name? John, which I won't mention his last name. He says, oh, yeah, didn't he go down in a jet and Everglades? He goes, nah. He's living, he faked his own death and he's living in Bimini.
Oh, no. Holy God.
That was my bottom, Howard.
That was your bottom. Oh, my gosh. Nowhere else to go but AA after that, huh?
And plus I was crashing cars and I was depressed and I was taking antidepressants and drinking and smashing into things, and I got in a really bad accident after that. I nearly died in that, and then after that it was like they basically threw me through the doors after that. That's it. We're done with you. You're going. Wow. I wasn't picking up on the clues, obviously, and I didn't have a lot of discretionary kind of judgment.
Yeah.
Which I think that happens. Everybody has that. It's like they have the stories going, how can I be so stupid?
Yeah, that's that moment of clarity everybody's looking for.
Yes, that was mine.
But it was somewhat muddled with everything that was going on, I guess, huh?
Yep.
So you get into AA in 79. What was your first months and year like coming in? Were you embracing of it? Were you resistant to it?
I don't know about you, but I don't recognize what my thinking patterns were then.
Yeah.
What kind of sentences were going on in my head? Yeah. What was I saying to myself? I got thrown in by my friend Joanne, who was working at the bar, and she basically took me in her red drop-top Cadillac and drove by there because she had some experience with AA, and she opened the door. I don't remember her stopping. Open the door, and in you go. Because she goes, you're killing yourself, that's it, you're going. Yeah. And so I walked in the doors, and it was a women's meeting. Mm-hmm. And Harriet R., she was actually friendly with Bill W. From here and Clarence and them guys. She used to hang around with them. And it was like, she was like a zillion years sober then. So she was about 40 years sober then, because it was like 80 years since they were put. Yeah. So, and she was just this older lady, and she was, and I don't remember what she said, but I remember her smiling and being the things, and there was a whole bunch of women in there, and I remember thinking that. But the next day I came back because it was at the Coral Room, which is open from 7 a.m. till 12 at night. And I could just go, that was my treatment. I never went to treatment. And I just sat in there with the old freaking dudes, which they were old. They were my age now. But they would just, you could smoke in there, and they would just smoke. And I'd be going, I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know what I had to do. I didn't know what it would lead to. I didn't like the whole God thing, but it was sort of like, I've got nothing else to do. So sit there, and do that. And I didn't embrace it. No, I didn't. It wasn't like, yes, I'm saved, blah, 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 blah. It was nothing like that. It was like, oh my freaking word. I got to sit around with these old freaking dudes for the rest of my, I was that kind of thing. And it was like, I was looking at the steps and going, I'm not doing that, But what they did was, I'd be like, well, what's this traditions? What's this, and I had disco hair on and sparkly clothes at 9 o'clock in the morning. And I was still working on the bar. And so... So they would just, there was one guy in there, orange boat shoes, saved my life. Really? I don't remember his name exactly, but he used to bring me mangoes, and he used to kind of walk along in orange boat shoes, and they didn't actually come off the floor. They just kind of scrape along the floor. And he called me Genevieve for some reason. I kept saying, my name's Margie. He goes, yeah, thanks, Genevieve. So I was Genevieve, and that was that.
That may be a story you don't want to know. Right?
I don't know. There was time I was like, and I told him like 3 times, it's like, never mind, I'm Genevieve. And I'd be going, blah, blah, blah. He goes, well, just don't drink and go to me. And then the other old dudes that be sitting there all day smoking cigarettes down to the brown burn mark in the middle of their hand.
Right.
They'd be go, I'd be go, what is it? What about this? I just stay there all day.
So you just hung in the club during the day while you were waiting for meetings to go?
That's it. Go to meetings because it was like 8 meetings a day, and I just wait for a meeting. And they would just blow smoke in my face and go, well, just don't drink, go to a meeting. That's all you got to do. And so that's about all I could really absorb, and all the rest of it just was like total confusion. I don't know.
Did that provide any clarity to you, though?
The mechanics of it did.
They did,
Yeah, it was sort of like, you know what? If I don't drink and go to a meeting, I don't drink.
What a revelation.
I know, right?
Yeah.
And they were just saying it to get me away from them. They weren't trying to be profound.
They weren't very warm and fuzzy back then, were they?
Yeah. Oh, here she comes. Oh, my God. Don't drink, go to meeting. That's all you need to know. Okay, bye. Fine. But there's a profundity to that. Because if you don't drink, I do the exact same thing now. The same set of rules applies to 41 years later, that this is what you do. 41 years later, I don't drink. Okay, so I don't get drunk, and that's the things. And people have been known to go out with huge amounts of sobriety. And if you go to a meeting, which I did, you gradually, incrementally, inescapably start to understand what you need to do to stay sober, what it means to be in a fellowship, what are things. And you cannot do that unless you go to a meeting, because sobriety is just not, you read the book and you go, the step and you do this and the step 4 and the 9 and the 10 and and there you are, boom, all cooked. You're done.
I'm fond of saying to people, if you only do 2 things, the first is don't drink.
Yep.
The second thing is go to meetings, because at those meetings you'll learn about the other things you need to do.
Yes, exactly.
Because
right.
I think, when you're saying to someone, okay, these are the things you got to do: not drink, go to meetings, get a sponsor, read the big book, pray, and then work with others. That list is too long.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Don't drink, go to meeting. See what happens at the meeting. That's basically it. That's the program. Because that's when, and then somebody 5 days later says, no, you need to get a commitment. We used to empty ashtrays. That's everybody's first commitment, because we're too stupid to refuse. It's like, and they're like, oh, newbies, they can clean up.
Yeah. Did you have a sponsor at this time?
Not immediately, but a little bit later I did. Yeah, I did get a sponsor. And,
What was that experience like?
The first one, she was quite simple, and she did die. And then I got my American sponsor that I'm still in touch with, Dale. Dale, the hippie, the knower of all things. She knew everything. She would give it to you in 4-word sentences. Go look at the book. Go to step 4. Don't drink, go to meeting. Help another alcoholic. And then she'd hang up on you. She did not listen to whiny.
Was she the kind of sponsor you needed at that time, or?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Because I can get quite, I'm a writer now, and I can get quite elaborate and go off onto tangents with my thinking. And she just needed to go, the way out of the desert is that way. That's it. Don't do anything else. Just go that way.
Just the facts. Just the facts, ma'am. Just the facts.
Just the facts, ma'am. Exactly. Just go that way. And I'd be like, but here's the buzz. And I don't really believe in that kind of, just keep walking, and exactly what I need now, because I can go off on tangents and talk to myself in ways that would get me in all kinds of trouble.
We'll be right back. My friends, if you're enjoying AA Recovery interviews, I invite you to check out my latest audiobook, Alcoholics Anonymous, the story of how more than 100 men have recovered from alcoholism. This is the word-for-word, cover-to-cover reading of the first edition of the Big Book, published in 1939. It's a relaxing yet meaningful and engaging way to listen to the Big Book anytime, any place. Have a free listen at Audible, iTunes, or Amazon. While you're there, search for my other audiobook, Lost Stories of the Big Book, 30 original stories from the first and or second editions, missing from the third and fourth editions of Alcoholics Anonymous. It's an engaging audiobook that brings these stories to life for AA members who've never seen them. These timeless testimonials were originally cut to make room for newer stories in the third and fourth editions. But their vitally important messages of hope are as meaningful today as they were when they were first published. Many listeners will hear these stories for the very first time. It's also available from Amazon as a Kindle book or in paperback if you'd like to read along. You're going to love it. And we're back. Isn't it interesting that the same things that were some of the greatest obstacles still pop up from time to time? Some of those greatest obstacles in the beginning. My sponsor always used to say, you think too much. You just think, you're overthinking this thing. You're making, you ask an alcoholic what time it is and he tells you how to build a clock.
Well, you want to know what city you're talking about too. Berlin,
Berlin.
New York.
Yeah. Now, you'd mentioned that you had some difficulty, as did I when I first came in, with the God part of what you saw. In how long did it take you within the program and within the work that you were doing to feel differently about that?
I had to do a lot of study. What I did was, I grew up in a Catholic sword swinging, you're going to hell for anything that you think, deed, anything you do at the age of 7. I was doomed then,
sure.
I ate bologna on a Friday and that's it. You're done. Cooked. So, I never connected with that because it wasn't making sense to me. And what was weird, it looked like it was making sense to everybody else. And they're like, yeah, that's cool. I'm like, that can't be right. You can't put a little kid in fire forever because they accidentally ate a hot dog. It was like, really? And I didn't think, I thought it was a sham.
Really?
I thought that I never connected with it. Never, ever as a kid. I thought that God was mean and not very, didn't have justice and didn't have this, from what I was taught, the way I was taught about it. And I thought that can't be right. That's not all loving. It's like, I always wondered about God fearing. Why should you fear God?
Right.
How do you love somebody that you're afraid of?
Well, it's like when they say God is all forgiving. Well, if God is all forgiving, then how could he possibly not be forgiving?
Well, that's what I was thinking when I was 8 years old. It's like that. This is not connecting up, and it's not making sense. And everybody else seems to get it, and somehow I'm not. So, and I didn't think so much as like God hates me or anything like that. I just thought, I don't think this is right. I just don't. And
but they'll teach that right. They'll teach that right out of it. Then you're left with an ambivalent, confused idea of what your higher power really is.
I didn't connect to one. I had a suspicion that there was something else, and it wasn't speaking to me in the way it was speaking to everybody else. So when I get sober, I used to kind of be afraid of that because I was like, I had a sneaking suspicion that there was something, and it wasn't monolithic or anything like that. It wasn't, if you wanted to have a god, you could have Odin if you wanted to, or Zeus, or something like that. But I didn't think it was in that form, and I didn't have a form or a thing to connect to. So I felt very much in limbo, which is something I was taught, but in this place where it's like, I have a feeling that it's sort of like, I think there's some treasure someplace, but it's not where everybody's looking, at least not for me.
Right.
And so I, over the years, I studied. I went into comparative religion. I looked at all kinds of stuff. I started practicing yoga, which didn't really lead me to that, but opened me up to there's another side of thinking, and I went more into Eastern thought, like Buddhism doesn't actually, I find, AA is very Buddhist in its core principles.
I agree with that. Yes.
It's like you don't revere Buddha. You don't sit and, what you do is you practice the principles. It's just basically what we do. We have founders who started it, and we're really grateful to them, but we don't idealize them and we don't idolize them, and it's that kind of thing. So over the years, and I'm still at it, a way I had to extract the idea of a monolithic, like this is what God looks like kind of a thing, and which I kept referring back to. And it was like, you can't think in that way. So it's a different thing. And I eventually came up with the phrase that I connect to, I try to connect to every day, is that which animates us.
That which animates us.
I don't know what that is, but somehow we're animated. Somehow there's order in the universe. Somehow that is. And I remember being like 9 years old and thinking, why am I in this body? How come I can't go outside the edges of it? why am I confined here? I remember one time it's like, I can't get out of here, and I had this idea that there was a difference between your physical body and your essence, the thing that which animates you, which some people call a soul.
That's very Zen, and to have that as a kid, and then to pursue knowledge of that. So it sounds like your spiritual awakening was more of the educational kind along the way.
Yes, very much so. But I found things that was like, see, this is what I've been talking about. So in between all of that time, I'm feeling this way. It's like I just landed in this thing. It's like, how come the molecules stick together and hold you in the shape, and how come they're not like floating around and being, different? It's like, and that's with whether you're talking about plants or ground or anything else, they hold a pattern. While that's going on in my little 9-year-old, 10-year-old head, it's like, why am I stuck in here? It's like, I mean, I guess all right. And it seemed like, am I the only one thinking this? And it was apparently, yes, you are the only one thinking. And you know what, though? I found out later as I read more on Eastern religions and things like that. I very much like the ideas that are set in Aldous Huxley's The Perennial Principle. But he comes back to the same thing. They call it the ground. I call it that which animates me. I don't know what that is, but I can feel it, how people did that.
So for you, you kind of had a double gift when you came into AA, didn't you? You got sober and you got a spiritual connection or a spiritual path.
Yeah, very much so.
So how did this spiritual understanding or realization inform your overall AA program?
One of the things that I've discovered in most of my sobriety, the things I learned have been in retrospect, is I've been encouraged to do something that at the point of where I was at that place, I thought that's never going to work. I don't see the point of that. That's just stupid. They're just telling me that. I don't know what they're talking about. It didn't make sense to me at the starting line of whatever it might be, whether it be a step, whether it be working with other people, whether it be opening up to other possibilities, whether it be getting through a program and just do this and that and the other thing. What I did, I was willing.
Sure.
Because what I saw as an evidence that when people got sober, things did change. I lived in hope that I went ahead, kicking and screaming, stand by my feet, and I went ahead and did it. And as a result of that, it's like when they say in step 12, as a result of doing those steps, as a result of doing these steps, we have a change. It's as a result of doing a specific action. That action actually starts to change your perspective and your understanding. And you don't have that until you actually go through the action. So, I put my trust in people who had done it before, or if I watched them do this, and there was a change, and it was helpful. Life is challenging, and so having a guide and having a set of steps, and I'm not talking about 12 steps, a set of rules that's like, refer back to this, and you can get through it. It's not always gonna be comfortable. It's not always going to be fun. It's not always going to be what you think it is, but you will get from point A to point B. And that's your only thing. And doing that without a drink, that's all you need to do. It doesn't have to be pretty. It doesn't have to be, but sometimes it is pretty. Sometimes it's real pretty. Sometimes it is things you don't believe and you go, oh my God, that's amazing. And other times it's like, I am, my eyelashes are falling out. My hair is all ratty. My foot is broken, but I'm here. And that's all we need. We, for me, is that step, that go, and getting through and having an experience in life that I have lived sober. That's all we do. That's what we do. And the other thing that I found is people have done it for me, and I need to do it for other people. Is that you have to reach back and help pull somebody else up with you, and that's part of what holds us and keeps us sober. It's like we learn what we need to do, and then we let somebody else, once we've done that and once we've had experience with that, is to help other people do that too. And that's what perpetuates us as we go on. Here's the thing. I have what I've developed for AA and its process over time is hope, faith, and trust. When I first came in, I was hoping that things would change. I was hoping that I could somehow reach a reasonable level of human potential. And I was hoping just not to kill myself accidentally, by my own hand, unintentionally. I was hoping that, and I was hoping that somebody could help me. And I was hoping that maybe this things. And then gradually, after I was told various different things and what to do, and I started to get a little bit of time under the belt. Then I had a little faith in it because I saw other people changing, and I saw, I was like, actually, I had not drank all this time, so I do have faith in what they're saying to me, so I developed a little place, and I think that's true. I can't have faith in something that has nothing, no tangible bulk to it, but there was evidence of that. There was evidence. I was listening to people's stories. I was experiencing my own. So I had a faith that if I did something, then something actually would start to develop for me. And now I trust it. So I trust that this goes on through my own experience, through the experience of other people, and, reinforcing that the ideas of that this actually does work by people compare to you and you go, yep, I did that and it did work. And so it kind of reinforces the ideas of what you did while you were living sober.
At what point did that start making the program fit more into your life, or doing the steps? I know, because I had a hard time with the spiritual part of the program, and mine was truly an awakening because I didn't get any real spiritual connectedness until after I had worked all 12 steps, at which point I had to look back and I had to say, geez, I thought I'd never say anything to anybody about that. I thought I would never do this and that. Somehow I did it, ergo power greater than myself. Finally, I could pin what I had done onto something greater than myself. That took a couple years. But so what would you say to somebody who says, well, Margie, I'd love that depth of understanding, but is it going to take me all that time?
Maybe. So how do you get, well, that'd be nice, but I like 41 years of sobriety. It's going to take me 41 years? Yes. It is, some people come in with faith, and that's great, man. Hang your hat on that. But if you don't, know that you're going to learn so much. You're going to learn so much in that things. You will, as a result of studying things and learning things and trying things, you become a more developed human being. Just like as the result of living sober, you become a different person. Your life changes. Your insights become more informed. It may be a gradual thing, and it, just like I said in the book, one day it might hit you like a ton of bricks. And, but the journey is really what we're after, not the results. So there you are. And so you were fairly newly sober, and like I call newly sober in the first 5 years or so. And all of a sudden you got, I have spiritual awakening. And then what? And what is, so like you're done now, or like what's the thing? It should be like life is. What you think now about stuff, when you're older, is very different than when you did when you were 20. And that came about as a result of, just like it says in step 12, as a result of doing these steps, as a result of living your life, as a result of trying with the things, you become a different person. So your look back, what you're saying now is like, I want all this spirituality, I want it now. Your take on that in 10 years is going to be very different than it is now. So you have to give yourself that opportunity to go. And that's where the hope, the faith and the trust comes in. You can see it in other people. You can hear it in other people. You can start to experience little lights of it yourself. And that's where you become Christ. So you don't know what you're going to be like in 15 years. You don't know what's going to happen. You don't know how you're going to develop. You don't know that. And you have to give yourself the opportunity to be able to experience that. It doesn't happen. Some people do get hit by lightning and then they're perfectly wonderful the rest of their lives. That's not been my experience.
Was there ever a point where you thought, well, maybe I could stay sober with just that and not have to be as involved in an actual program itself? After all, I've been sober. I'm crediting that to a power greater than myself. Is that not enough to stay sober such that I don't have to go to as many meetings or engage with people as much?
No. Good. Never. I know myself. I have lived with myself all this time. It's sort of like, I know, I still feel it now, that if I started drinking, I'd be over, gone. I would be gone.
You'd be gone.
It's sort of like, listen, I'm going to give you 6 cupcakes. Only eat one of them.
Yeah.
Not happening. I know myself, I know what my body does with it. I know what it feels like to drink too much and then to drink anyway, even though I'm saying to myself, I don't want to be doing this. And I do. I know that still lives in me. I also know I have seen people, especially in that between 5 and 10 years, think that, everything's good. I don't have to go. I'm going to go be a normal person now. And that thing still lives there. I know that my, alcoholism lives there. In cognitive behavioral therapy and various other different kinds of therapies, they refer to it as an integrated sub-personality.
Wow.
And I can feel it. It sits there knitting or doing whatever it does, and then it'll come up with a bespoke to my level of sobriety or emotional sobriety that day, come up with an idea and float it and see if I'll go for it.
Wow.
It's sort of like I do little homages when I go into the grocery store or something like that, and I find myself going back like a wine display or something like that. I do not read the labels. I put my eyes down. It's sort of like, because that's just a very thin way. We'll read the label. It's all right. You can read the label. Why would I want to read the wine label? It's like, wonderful. There's no reason for that. But that part of me goes, no, you can do that. You're okay. You got lots of sobriety. Yeah. It's all like, woo, like the sirens, pulling the ships to the rocks.
It's okay. It's okay if I go to the edge of the cliff. I'm just going to take a look over the edge.
I know it's raining and snowing, it's icy, but that's all right. And it's like, so no, I do know that it is available to me at all times. I have never felt that. And also, I think what makes AA work, we could, if it just was like just about us alone, we could just get the book on Amazon, read it, and boom, Bob's your uncle, and away you go, and you'd be sober forever. That's not what makes this whole thing work. It is that that you take the principles, you incorporate it, and then you have to move it outward. That's what keeps the circle, the water wheel, moving. It's like it goes down and it comes back up. What the water going down pushes the thing, and that's what brings us back up so that we can push down the water again. And I've said this many times before, but it's the strangeness of AA, why it works. People trying to get us sober or see us as it's like they've been friends, lovers, husbands, wives, kids, mothers, fathers, doctors, policemen, psychiatric hospitals, nurses, doctors, you name it. If an alcoholic wants to drink, they're going to drink. So somehow I do think, and this is where I do think there was some kind of divine, if you want to talk about the thing that Animator said, that's enough with this junk. We have lost billions of these people and they're useless and they're just making a blot on the landscape. And really they are good working parts and they could be more useful to the universe and to Earth. So I'm going to stick you all in a room together, unsupervised. Nope, nothing. Just nope. No supervisors, no directors. We're going to see what happens. And that's how they form the program. That's how they form the steps. That's how it's like left to our own devices with another alcoholic, we do pretty goddamn good. We really do. But the professionals can't help us. Yeah. And there's something magical in that another alcoholic is there. This is what I'm going through. Let me help you. Yeah. Reach down, pay it forward. That's what is the secret to AA.
They can be the little push that gets you through the door. Yeah. And from then on, it's up to you and the group. So sounds to me like with 41 years, with that kind of approach and that sort of frame of mind about the program, have there been times at which that was strained or tested, events, occurrences in your life where you were hanging on by your fingernails or where you were kind of dancing along the edge of the cliff? And how did you get pulled back in? What happened?
I think my attention has been drawn away. I've never stopped going to meetings. That is something that has been a consistent through my entire sobriety. I think the longest I've gone is 10 days, and that's when I was in the hospital having children. And then they started coming to meetings with me in the bucket.
I took a baby or two myself. I know what you're talking about.
I've never done that. So I've never, distanced myself enough for that. But yeah, I've gone through some horrible times, really, really bad times in my sobriety. I got the careful what you wish for. You get to live. It's like, I'm like, we're out of the woods. I'm like, we're going to go to the land of Oz and it's all going to be wonderful. And it's like, did I tell you about that forest thing and the horrible witch and all of the other stuff? Did I forget to mention that?
Forgot it.
I've been through some horrible times where I've gotten very mentally distracted. And, this is my alcoholism talking to me. You've been sober all this time and now look at you. You got 3 kids, you got no money, your husband's off in Greece, screwing some lady over there and blah, 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 and you got no money, and and how you did all this, and it was sort of like, yeah, I did, and somehow I stayed sober. People came with me and said, you're going to get through. You may end up being, a bit frayed around the edges and have scars and all that stuff, but you got to live. Grateful for that. I'm not particularly pleased with a lot of the things I had to go through because, the one thing I don't like, and I think this is where we have to have compassion for people who have gone through some terrible times. And I think people kind of fluff off other people's pain sometimes. It's like, whatever doesn't kill you makes you stronger. You know what? Once you've been assaulted, by life, by a person, by anything, it's like it may not kill you, but it can maim you and really hurt you and make it difficult to continue living over here. And this is where we come to each other's rescue,
Yeah, and one of the things I have noticed over the years is that when people like you or I who've got long-term sobriety, who do stay in the middle of the program, who do go to meetings all the time. And then we face these challenges. And of course, because of the way we've set up our fellowship and our spiritual life, we get through these things. It is incumbent upon us, I think, to share that in a way that encourages people who are looking forward to possibly going through tough times, somebody with 2, maybe up to 5 years, thinking, well, will I be able to make it? When they hear that message, I think it instills hope.
Yes, it does.
So I have an obligation as a sober alcoholic to share that, which is why if I'm not in meetings, I'm not sharing.
Yes,
right?
Exactly right.
And so this whole podcast is just another way that I want to be of service to people to be able to listen to people like you say, man, I've been through some terrible, terrible things, but I stayed in the middle. I kept my fellowship strong. I kept my spiritual life strong, and I made it through it. Was it fun? No. It sucked. It sucked. Which is why, Margie, have you ever noticed where when people are struggling or really, having a tough time, people say, well, just do this, just do this, just do this, just pray more, pray more. Pray. And I'm a firm believer that you can feel two things at the same time. I can be fearful about something, but still knowledgeable that it will pass.
Of course.
Or I may feel sad about something, but grateful that I can experience that sadness. Does that make sense?
Yes. Exactly right. Exactly right. Two diametrically opposed ideas. And the word just is, it diminishes a lot of things. It's like, just do this. In other words, in that word just, it's like a kind of a throw out things, but it's like, that's all you need to do, and then everything will be fixed, and you should know that. And it's sort of it's kind of insulting, really. It really diminishes somebody's pain. Just do that. Even though I say don't drink and go to meetings, I think people understand that is a big. There's a lot more meaning to that. But the word just, when somebody says just pray or just do this or just, it really diminishes what they're going through from here because it's dismissive.
And just as importantly, and I love that idea that just diminishes just as much. Well, there I went and used the word. Okay.
Different context.
The idea that, okay, if I'm sober X number of years, I will have arrived. My sobriety will be set and carved in granite, never to be shaken for the rest of eternity. And I'm always so grateful when we had a guy in one of the men's meetings I went to who lost a son to suicide, lost another one to cancer. But he would come in and he would share what was going on. He's been sober like 45, 50 years, and he was still sharing this stuff, and he was still shedding a tear. And it was so beautiful to see that we still have to live life no matter how long we stay sober.
Of course we do. That's the whole point of being sober.
So when people can get to that, I really appreciate it. So if this was a regular interview, I would have done all kinds of research. I would have looked into, maybe tried to find out more about you, talk to other people about you, that kind of stuff. But the only thing I need to know about you is that you're a sober alcoholic who, in her shares, projects gratitude. And I sense the gratitude while you're talking, that you're enjoying this thing. And I love AA. I can't say enough good things about it.
It's not what people think. And I am eternally, and you hear it so much that it becomes almost like a throw-off kind of thing. Sure. Eternally grateful. The longer I'm sober, the more I understand what this is. Yeah. And it's like the shades of it are, you can't always get that in your first meeting. You can get gratitude in first meeting. It's like, I think I might be able to do this. I think I may be not doing. And that's a different kind of gratitude to, oh my God, this has enhanced my being. Yeah. My being. Again, going back to that which animates that, it has developed that enough. And that's, what all major religions want to do anyways, is some of them anyway, is to develop you as a spiritual being. Yeah, not necessarily a minion of Thor or Odin or if you want to be, you can be.
Sure. I always like to talk about being the spiritual being, having the human experience, and part of having that human experience is going through everything that humans can go through with the innate knowledge and wisdom and feeling that you are a spiritual being and that God has you covered no matter what, or a higher power has you covered no matter what. One of the things you mentioned earlier when you were talking about we could, if it wasn't like this, we could just get a book, send out a book and that sort of thing. Yeah. My concern now with a lot of people who are on Zoom, who've never gone to a live meeting, is that Zoom to me feels very much like trying to read a book. And so have you thought about how it's going to be when people come back? Do you think they can get what they need from Zoom sufficient to bring them back into AA when we're really back together?
As from an experience and kind of feel, I get a lot from Zoom, but I have the backup of, years and years of physical meetings. I think they're going to be overwhelmed and shocked because everybody's going to be, I'm going to be hugging you until your eyes pop out, kind of a thing. Right, It's like, overload. But and one of the things that I do worry about is that the physicalness of having a commitment, making tea, putting out chairs, that kind of thing is missing from a lot of, and that to me is a lot of what built my experience as a sober alcoholic.
Sitting in those clubs all day long.
Yeah.
And
what are you doing now? It's like, I once went and cleaned the men's room in the club, which, 3 people come up to you and says, you are now exonerated from doing any commitment work at all for the next 3 years,
it was that bad.
Oh, God, what is wrong with you people? What the hell you been doing in here? But so it's a bit lacking in participation in the upkeep of a group. And that's like living in a family. And it's like, it could be a little bit like living in a family, but staying up in your room forever and never coming down.
Yeah. Or after dinner, you split, you just leave right away. And that one of the biggest differences between live meetings and Zoom is that in a live meeting, if somebody says something that either is a cry for help or whatever else, or something that's struck me in a certain way, I can get up and run after that person and say,
for them.
Yeah, let me tell you. But even like the meeting that we go to, they're all gone within like
3 seconds,
20 seconds. And I'm thinking, how about that guy who was talking about the struggle? He say, I hope. So the only thing I can do at that point is hope he'll come back.
Or, get him in the chat and send him your number or something.
Yeah, exactly. And I've done that. So I'm I'm grateful that we have that capacity.
I mean, we do what you can do. During World War II, there were many soldiers from all over the world, Europe and mostly in Europe and America, who were unable to go to physical meetings and that kind of thing, and they stayed sober by, the email of the time, which was mail, and they would write each other letters and know that there were people that were in the world who were also doing what they're doing. And so it's on the same principle. They're going to get their chance. They're going to come out. They're going to be overwhelmed, and they're going to have to be, hauling this and helping another alcoholic and being there and putting hands on people and shaking hands and doing that kind of thing. Now, it's like you can still, like I go to GSR meetings, and it's like there are still people who are working with the technology, with participate and give back in ways, but they're limited, Now, a lot of people have gotten sober on Zoom. They're in for a shock.
Yeah, well, and I'm amazed, and I have a couple sponsees who have virtual sponsees. They've never met these people. They've only talked to them online, and some of it's actually working. Yeah, and I think it's marvelous, and I've made so many new friends. I didn't expect to meet people as lovely as you. And
big hug.
Big hug. We can't necessarily do that, but what I know is that my wife wants to take a trip to Great Britain in the next 2 years sometime. And what I know is that when I get there, I'm going to have a number of people to call and say hi to, several people to meet at meetings, other people to just give that big hug to. You notice I greet, but I'm a greeter in virtually every live meeting I go to.
Yeah, me too. I'm a greeter. I was a greeter at Pont Street.
I love to do that. Yep. And the reason I do that is because my greeting, just by saying hello, may be the only interaction they really have with anybody during that meeting. Because I've seen so many meetings where people go in, they sit down, they pull out their phone immediately, and everybody's looking down, and I'll walk up to them and I'll say, John, do you know Bob? I mean, they're sitting right next to each other. Bob, do you know John? And then they look up and, oh, no, they haven't met him yet. They're sitting right next to him. So I love the greeting.
Yeah, I do that. And one of the things with that, too, is like I had a girl who was having some real problems. She was in depression. She was sober, but she was, feeling suicidal, and she was there. And she walked in, I could see her face. I was like, uh-oh, something's off here. I just went up to her, I put my arms up, and I gave her a hug, and I didn't let her go. I just, because I could feel it. She was like, oh, and I didn't even say anything to her. I didn't say hello. I didn't say anything. I just went, and she gave me a hug, not just a quick one. She sat there in the hug for a bit, and it was really nice. And then she just let out, that release of what my friend calls leaking air. When you got a problem and you're sitting there going,
leaking air. I like that. Yeah.
Leaking air. Oh, what's the matter? You're leaking air. And she sat down and she went to the meeting. And then she wrote me a little text. She said, all day I've been waiting to see you so I could just hug you. And I didn't really know her that well. She goes, I just wanted to get a hi or get a hug from you, and that's all I needed.
I felt the same warmness when I came in and you said hi to me, even though I'm used to that kind of thing. But coming into that London meeting and getting to meet you, and you doing this today means so much to our community, our AA community. This has been the first time I've done this where I've interviewed somebody I didn't really know.
Oh, well, I feel like I kind of know because we chit-chat and kibitz across.
Yeah, we know each other. And somewhere along the way, we are, when I say to people, when I call people brother and sister in the program, that's what it is. And I know people, when they introduce themselves, they'll say, hi, family. And I get that. It's like the family I didn't have, and I have a family, but it was never like this. No. Well, enjoy the rest of your day. I'm so happy to see you.
I will see you on Monday, and I really appreciate your service that you do to our meeting. And obviously, you're a great example for that. And we all love you. You've made my day.
Well, thank you, and you've made mine as well.
Thank you so much. I really do appreciate it.
You bet. Well, my friends, that's a wrap for yet another captivating interview in the AA Recovery Interviews podcast series. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed AA Recovery Interviews, will you please tell others about it? And please leave us a rating or review for the show on your podcast app. That'll help others find us. As the number of worldwide listeners grows, this podcast will be of greater help to more and more people. Of course, you can listen to any or all of my other interviews on Apple Podcasts and other podcast providers. Or tell Siri, Google Assistant, or Alexa, play AA Recovery Interviews podcast. Or visit our website, aarecoveryinterviews.com, to listen to every interview, share your comments, and also to contact us. If you want to email me directly, it's howard@aarecoveryinterviews.com. By the way, this podcast strictly adheres to AA's 12 traditions and all General Service Office guidelines for safeguarding anonymity online. I pay all production costs, and no one receives financial gain from the show. AA Recovery Interviews and my guests do not speak for or represent AA at large. This podcast is simply my way of giving back to AA that which has been so freely given to me. The next episode of AA Recovery Interviews is on the way, so keep coming back. It'll be here soon.